So can everyone hear me okay? I think so, right? Yeah, sweet. Okay, so yeah, as John said, we are Source Manager. We were announced formally at last year's BSD Can, and I think we started doing regular meetings not long after that. Maybe it was in August or September. So, you know, in the same spirit as the core update, we wanted to give an update on what we've been doing, what we've been talking about, and what more importantly, what we would like to see in the coming year. Just a bit of background. Source Manager is just a kind of quasi-leadership group akin to Port Manager or DocEng. Our general goals are to just try to address problems in source development, try to make people more productive, try to address shortcomings, friction, all that kind of stuff. Our job isn't, or at least, I mean, others can disagree. I don't really think our job is to push people in any particular direction. It's more to just, you know, address problems, create opportunities, and let the community, you know, decide ultimately where we go. So leading from behind, I suppose. So right now, it's the four of us. I don't intend it to be that way forever, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. We have a charter and some kind of early policies that are available on the FreeBSD.org website. Yeah, so you might have heard from us just here or there, mostly if you're trying to mentor someone for a commit bit. The main change with respect to last year is that now instead of mailing core, you mail Source Manager. Not really a big difference, but I think we do tend to be a bit faster. So what are we doing? So we're having lots of meetings, which is very useful. So every 2 weeks we meet, I think it's on a Friday afternoon, and we're all roughly in similar time zones, which makes things a bit easier, but yeah, we'll come to that in a bit. So I write up minutes that very, very broadly just summarize what we talk about. But a lot of it is just frankly people venting and trying to come up with ways to address certain problems. So, I mean, there's quite a few different topics, but so going back to what we complain about, or in a little bit. We approve new source commit bits. Lately, we've been organizing regular bug triage sessions. So on a Zoom call, a few of us will get together, start going through, say, the last month's new submissions on Bugzilla. And you know, us being fairly experienced source developers, we can at least try to help push other people to, you know, dig into bugs, ask initial questions, do some triage, that sort of thing. So we do the same thing for pull requests, although not quite as regularly. But on our calls, we also spend time trying to triage things. So the whole point is, you know, just trying to start creating a baseline to make sure that things don't fall through the cracks quite as easily. Obviously, you know, we don't want to just be doing that ourselves, but our initial step was just to try to find some procedures, some rhythm to regular triage, and then create these larger bug busting events where other folks can join. The other thing that a few of us have been working on is developer tooling as well. So I don't know, if you work on the ports tree a lot, I think you have the benefit of quite a lot of fairly decent tools, things like Poudriere, yeah, are very useful. We don't have, you know, real equivalents to that sort of thing. So for instance, Warren has been working on scripts to make it easier to land pull requests from GitHub. I've been working on some scripts to make it a bit easier to MFC, changes to stable branches, and in particular find fix-up commits where, you know, commit A fixes a bug but introduces a new one. So you have commit B, which fixes commit A. When you MFC commit A, you want to make sure that you also get commit B. We don't have any good tooling around that, but that's an example of the sort of thing we want to work on. We set policy on platform support, so things like 32-bit kernel deprecation, which we'll get to in a little bit, are under that umbrella. And more broadly, we just spend a lot of time trying to work through submissions from contributors, mentoring new developers ourselves, that sort of thing. So I'll give it over to John to talk about the 32-bit stuff.
Yeah, yay me. So this is a carryover from something the previous core team had talked about and announced that in 15.0, we're going to deprecate i386 and 32-bit PowerPC as kind of full-blown targets. So Colin had emailed a a couple of different teams, including Source Manager, a while ago, to said, okay, 15.0 is coming up, so can we get like a plan for that? So we as a group hashed out an initial set of plan, and we approached core and said, so here's kind of what we think might be a plan for initial kind of rough sketch for doing this, but there's more than Source in the world, so how do you want to handle this? And core promptly said, well, that's fine, you can run with it, and happily threw the potato off of their plate, and have let us kind of drive this process. So we've been talking with other folks, including Ari and Port Manager, to try to come up with a proposal. And this is the proposal that we have that we'll go over to kind of show you guys, or you all. So a couple of points that we kind of had, or kind of things that we were thinking in the back of our mind, is that in recent history, when we removed platforms, it's kind of been a bit bumpy. And in particular, because of the way we do it is we remove it in head or main, but then they hang around in stable branches for a while. And they tend to rot because no one is actually, when you do tree-wide sweeps that get MFC'd, you haven't actually touched the thing in head. And so then when you MFC it, you break things. On the other hand, if we leave just code around and for a long time and while it's actively used, that also has a cost. So there's a balance, but we think maybe we've been a bit too eager on the delete side of the balance, and we're trying to think of a better balance for this go round. We do think that the fact that ARM v7 is going to be around for at least the lifetime of 15.0 will help a little bit, because we're always going to have a 32-bit target in the tree hooked up. So generic 32-bit regressions shouldn't sneak in the near term. And during this discussion, one request we had in particular about i386, there's a strong desire to keep the full i386 world, not the kernel, around, and at least the ability to manually build ports on i386 perhaps, which requires having a full world. So that's kind of the points that came up to shape our proposal. So here's kind of our perspective, our proposed timeline. Is that on about 3 months prior to stable, which is about now, we think that a plan that'll work is that to kind of unhook things from the build but not remove anything. So we would disable all in order for i386 to remain as kind of a world-only target, we would tag all the kernel configs as no universe. So you can still build them by hand if you want, but make Tinderbox and make universe won't build them by default. And for a 32-bit PowerPC, we would just take it out of the default list of architectures. So you can still build it by hand if you use Target Arc or Target with build world and whatnot, but it wouldn't be built as part of Make Tinderbox. And we would stop building certain things for main. We would stop building release snapshots, because you can't do that if you once you start disconnecting things, and stop building binary packages, and also probably turn off CI jobs in Jenkins. And that's kind of where we would do, in the next month or so. And then we have a little Git branch listed under my clone for now, which has some commits to do this. And so I've tested that Make Tinderbox works if we do all these things and builds the correct subset of things. Then the next stage would be, once stable 15 branches, there are some things we just wouldn't turn on. So when we were adding CI or adding package builds and so forth, we just wouldn't add i386 and 32-bit PowerPC. But no other changes to the actual tree. We would just keep the changes that are in main. Then about 6 months after the release, the branching and release, which is going to be around December or so, we'll be back here for our next BSDCan Developer Summit. And we can kind of take stock and evaluate, how is this process working? Like, how are the stable branches doing? How is stable 14 dealing with the fact that it's present but not hooked up to Make Tinderbox? Like, how is that experiment working? Is that going well? Is it not going well? If stable seems to be pretty smooth, then we can start the process of actually removing kernel code for i386 and 32-bit PowerPC in main. If it's not smooth, then we're going to need to adjust the plan. But if it is smooth, then we can start the process of removing things. And then one suggestion in particular from Colin is that by the time the final release of 14.x has happened, then we can look at maybe MFCing those removals of code back down to stable 15. Because once stable 14 doesn't have releases anymore, we're not going to be doing any more releases that depend on that particular bits of code. So this is kind of our proposal. I think presumably at this point we'll probably mail it to developers to try to make sure that there's decent consensus on this. And if there is, then we'll probably start landing those changes from the Git branch that we talked about 2 slides ago. So any questions of that before we move to our next topic? Or pitchforks or...
So I recall there was a question on IRC this morning to the effect of, are we removing PowerPC as a platform? And I don't know if that referred specifically to 32-bit or 64-bit, if anyone has.
Right, it should be clear that none of this affects 64-bit PowerPC.
Yeah.
And that we intend for the lib32 bits of our 64-bit platforms, such as PowerPC, to hang around for the foreseeable future. We don't currently have a timeline when we think lib32 might no longer make sense. Especially, I read somewhere that I guess Intel has postponed x86s, which was going to remove like a good chunk of the 32-bit compatibility from the ISA. So there's a somewhat, that removes one possibly compelling reason for removing lib32 on AMD64, for example. I suspect it'll be a while before we ever retire lib32 support.
Right.
Is my guess. Warner.
Yeah, on PowerPC, the only thing that has even been floated is de-emphasizing the big Indian and emphasizing the little Indian, because that's what the current hardware does. And there might be an evolution and consequences of that longer term, but we're not planning anything for 15.
Or any IRC?
Yeah, any chatter outside of the room?
Trivia question, is there a big
Here, do you want a mic? We have mics at the bottom, I think,
Or
by
we
the
can
way.
just repeat it, yeah.
And then you can be our volunteer, you can be the runner on this side of the room.
Do we have a big Indian platform that we have as part of Make Universe and so on to make sure we're not introducing Indian-specific bugs?
So we have, well, the only one we will have at this point is PowerPC 64 Big Indian, which is also true today.
Yeah.
But and we're only de-emphasizing the 32-bit Big Indian?
Correct.
Okay.
But
No, we're de-emphasizing the 64-bit, and this is not, the project is de-emphasizing it.
well,
We-
okay,
it's
we're
hardware
not
doesn't
deprecating,
exist.
so
We're
I
not
should clarify.
deprecating. Be clear, we're not deprecating. We're deprecating the 32-bit PowerPC, which has only ever been Big Indian. The 64-bit, the Little Indian gets all the attention, and the Big Indian doesn't, and that's why I characterize it as we're de-emphasizing
Right.
that. It's what the developers have voted to do with their feet. It's not an official policy or an edict.
Or even what the architecture is doing with itself.
Like
It's what the architecture is doing too. So,
Brooks points out it seems IBM doesn't care about Big Indian, and that's why.
Yeah, I
The
think
hardware
it's-
doesn't exist.
Yes,
To the same
exactly.
yeah.
But we still have some way to test for now.
For now, yes.
For now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not going to, again, that's not going to change as
Yeah,
part of this
that's
proposal.
not changing. We're not planning on ripping any of that out. There might be older PowerPC hardware devices that we can't get anymore and can't legitimately support, like we retired, 10 megabit Ethernet cards on x86 without deprecating the whole platform. Stuff like
Right.
that'll still happen, but we're not planning any wholesale changes to PowerPC 415, 64-bit PowerPC 415. Just to be clear.
Yeah, so I think the generic 64 kernel, you can boot it in QEMU, as far as I'm aware. It's been a while since I did that personally, but it should work. And then there's this generic 64 little endian kernel. So yeah, one ideally tests both. But.
All right, I think it's back to Mark for the next slide here.
Yeah, so just going, and again, like I don't think we're going to fill up the whole hour and a half that we have. I hope that this will be a bit more conversational, so to speak, but just a bit more fleshed out descriptions of what we've been spending time on is, yeah, the bug busting sessions. If you're on the developers mailing list, you've probably seen announcements from me where I say, yeah, Friday afternoon, come join us on Zoom. We'll go through Bugzilla, and we get some decent turnout, and we plan to continue doing that, and hopefully expand. But that's kind of contingent on having more people available, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah, if you're interested, please join the sessions, especially if you're interested in finding things to work on. there's lots of opportunities in Bugzilla, and there's a good opportunity there to ask questions of source developers who might be able to point you in a certain direction. In the future, I would like to open it up to non-FreeBSD source commit bit havers, or yeah, people who are not on the developers mailing list. I'd like to announce it a bit more publicly, but we have some. Yeah, it's a bit easier to organizing it if you know the set of possible attendees is a bit more constrained.
It's smaller.
Yeah. Yep. So Source Manager has been around for almost a year. It's the 4 of us. We don't want to be doing it forever. There is some detail on the actual policy for how long we stay in the position on the website that I linked to earlier. But what we'd like to do formally is solicit people to join as lurkers. So this is a formal announcement, but there's no formal process to it. Basically, if you're interested in joining our calls, which again are every 2 weeks on Friday, although we can shift the times if that's needed in order to suit you. Basically, you would come join our calls, participate in the discussions, participate in GitHub, pull request review, bug busting, those sorts of things, and generally figure out if there's something about source development that you'd like to influence or change. We can be a good sounding board for your ideas or give you ideas of our own. We have lots of things we'd like to do, but we're limited by time and energy and space and all those things. So it would be really great if other folks who are interested would join and start trying to realize some of the ideas we've talked about. So if you are interested in joining us, again, it's a pretty informal thing. Just write us an email to sourcemanager@freebsd.org. Talk a little bit about what you're interested specifically in, and we'll give you an invite to our biweekly call, which is on meet.freebsd.org, and effectively we can take it from there.
And the other thing that we're viewing this as is an opportunity to learn what Source Manager does and potentially grow leadership skills in people so they could step up into our positions now and we can step away in the future. And we get a bigger bench of
Right.
people that can do this management type task for the project.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't have to be on that track if you don't want. We want the workers to help, but we also recognize that it's a growth opportunity for people as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And a way to figure out if you hate it before you actually decided to do it for a year.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah. If you're interested, come check it out. There's no real obligation. Just again, send us an email and talk a little bit about what you'd like to, or how you'd like to contribute. And if you try it and it's not for you, or if you don't have time, or anything like that, there's no obligation. But if you are interested in it and would like to spend more time on it, then then you'd be a candidate to be on Source Manager to replace one of us. So this is a bit more open-ended, and I'd be very interested in feedback, either from folks in the room or on IRC, but just talking a little bit about more aspirational goals. Warner, I don't know if you want to talk about the Forge idea in general, but since you've been doing the most with pull requests lately, you're welcome to.
Yeah, so one of the things I've been doing with GitHub is everybody has a GitHub account, and we want to make it easy for people to contribute. And so it's a very low barrier to entry for GitHub right now. And it's also very manageable. We can tag things, we can query things. It's something that we can keep up on fairly easily. Fabricator has some problems. It's deprecated. The upstream project is gone, and now there's Forge, and there's been some people who want to maybe do a quick last bit of an upgrade to Forge with that as well. But there's two groups, or two people that have been working on actually going the whole route, where we move everything to, like for Django, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong because I don't know how to pronounce it. And that would give us a source of truth. That would give us a way for developers or people with commit bits and users to submit pull requests. It would give us a review platform. It would give us bug tracking. And there's efforts to move our current bugs over as well. It would let us migrate our wiki as well to that. So there's a lot of advantages to having kind of a one-stop shop. Right now when you talk to people, depending on which doc they looked at, they go and submit stuff. And if they go to Fabricator and submit it and don't tell anybody, it just goes there and dies because we don't have any good oversight of Fabricator. I've been in touch with a couple people who have given me some hints that I'm trying to make it better until we can move forward with that. But that's kind of where we are. There's, for new people, it's particularly confusing because they might also go and file a patch in Bugzilla as well, depending on the version of the handbook that they get. If they got an old version that was cached somewhere, it used to direct people there. So it's one of the things that we're trying to do because we need new people. We've gotten probably 6 or 7 people from GitHub that have gotten new commit bits. One of the things I'm advocating for, though this is not new source manager policy, is to offer commit bits more quickly as people have proven themselves. In the past, it's been a higher bar, and now I'd like to lower that. And we've had good luck, for the most part, doing that. And if we ever not have good luck, we'll deal with the problems that way. Mm-hmm. And that also increases engagement. The more people do something and get praised for it, and then it gets in the tree, they'll do more things. But if they do something and it sits and then you get questions, and the interest is faded. And so we need to find ways to shorten that loop. GitHub helps, but I'm still not able to keep up on it. And so one of the other things I want to do this summer, I haven't announced it yet because I'm not committed to it, is to have.
You are now.
Oh yeah, damn. Is I want to try to do the same thing you've been doing with bug busting for pull requests, and have a reasonable group of people show up, and we look at it and we go through the pull request and go, yeah, we can land this, or this is the feedback that needs to be given after a discussion, or Randall needs to look at this bug because it's in that part of the TCP stack that only he knows, or whatever. And so that we can get a faster cadence, so more hands make the work lighter.
For sure.
So that's kind of all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes that around this one bullet point that comes to mind that I think people are interested in.
And I do think in general, our experience is that we prefer review that is branch-based, so pull request-based rather than patch-based like Fabricator.
Yes.
Because anytime you have patch-based is fine when you have a simple change, but that's also just a single branch. But when you have a complex change and you start rewriting history as a result of review and reshuffling commits and so forth, then that trying to keep Fabricator up to date with what your notion of your branch is quickly doesn't scale.
Splitting commits and changing the title.
It all falls apart, whereas in pull request models, you're reviewing the branch as a unit, and you can comment on commits, but you can comment on commits, but it'll catch up and recognize when you've reordered your history and so forth. So that's part of our focus, is we really do think that's the model we need to push to, is away from patch-based review and towards branch-based review.
Yeah.
And this is, today, tomorrow, we're focused on trying to keep our existing systems for patch contributions working, right? So that's the whole point of triage. We're triaging Bugzilla backlogs, GitHub backlogs. The GitHub backlog is in pretty good shape. I don't think we've
We're under 100 still.
We're under 100, yeah. We've been keeping it under 100 for basically forever. Which
Bugzilla could only dream.
Well, Bugzilla has gotten so much.
We're doing much better, actually.
Yeah, if you look at all the bugs, we're still kind of scary. But if you look at bugs in the last year, Mark has done a great job of getting them to the right people.
Well, Mark Linneman.
Mark Linneman.
And Mark J.
Both the Marks.
Mark squared.
Yeah. And then Fabricator is yet another backlog that we have no really good way to.
Ollie oxen free.
Yeah. So aspirationally, we'd like to move to a common, system for these workflows. But on a day-to-day basis, we're still pretty invested in keeping them working and trying to keep them as low friction as possible.
Yeah.
So in particular, if you're out there and you're interested in this kind of stuff, this is advancing these kinds of things is exactly what we'd hope workers would do.
So the killer feature to me of Fabricator is that you can tag group reviewers, and then it's like a mail will go out to all the people who are knowledgeable on the topic. And I was poking around in the GitHub and saw that there was a Teams feature that it seemed like we could just easily replicate that same thing. Like someone could just subscribe to a team and then it would work that way. Is there interest among the community of using that and re-implementing that? Thank you.
So, I mean, yeah, I'm sure you guys have some thoughts on that. My instinct is to try not to so I think the short answer is yes. We'd like to have a notion of, maintainer groups whose memberships can change over time like we do in Fabricator. I think the mistake in Fabricator is that it's tied to Fabricator. So, replicating all of that is a pretty manual process. So I'd really like to have like a simple text file somewhere in the source tree, which is the authority on, who's maintaining what pieces of code. And you can go even further, kind of like, GitHub's code owners thing where you can say, oh, files that match this or that glob go to these people. But yeah, it'd be nice to have a sort of platform-independent way of expressing that. And I think you could get 90% of the way there with a very simple, like just a little Python script.
And I think, yeah, you're going the direction I was going to comment, that it would also be good to have these are the people that have signed up for it, and then these are the people that are actually making changes to this area, and have those people added automatically to
voluntold
pull requests, or and so there's interest, and we'd like to do it, and we don't want to be tied to GitHub, but we don't want to tie our hands and not use GitHub features.
Yeah.
So if there's a way we can do that, that would be great.
I mean, Fabricator is nice that, Fabricator does have the nice property that anyone can be a member of a functional group. You don't have to be a committer. You don't have to be listed in a maintainer's file, and so I think that can be quite useful for people who are currently not committers but are particularly knowledgeable about it and interested in some area. And so, yeah, there's definitely a need to kind of consider all of the different use cases in things. I think we wouldn't want to be limited to only a code owners type file in the tree, but I think that would be a good start.
Something kind of similar, or at least, I think the abstraction should be pretty simple. You have lists of developer identifiers, and then you have some subsystem like, say, Linuxulator, or ZFS or something, and then some simple mapping between those two, and those are the two kind of objects that you really want, and that's going to get you most of the way there.
Maybe tangentially related to Warner's point earlier, where Randall's the only person that knows this subsystem. Has Source Manager been looking at making sure that, for example, those lists of maintainers would have more than one person for some of the things that we kind of have a bus factor of 1 for?
I mean, if we could solve that problem.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, what we try to do when we're doing these like triage sessions is basically be the repositories of knowledge of like who knows what, so we can at least try to pull people in, but like, that only works if people have time and are able. In some areas, I think we've had good success getting new maintainers for subsystems that were underdeveloped for a while. But I mean, like you said, we can't really force that to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, we can't force it to happen, but we can also have an environment where people can learn the different things through code review or what have you. We need more people that know all the details about CAM, because the people that have done it a lot in the past have been stepping away for whatever reason. And
then I break things.
And so I wind up breaking stuff because I don't have their knowledge. But we need people to do that. There's some subsystems that have no maintainer for a long time, and maybe it's time for it to go, like FireWire. Or maybe it's time to have a maintainer. Probably it's time for it to go. But,
just pushing my buttons.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, it's those kinds of decisions that we need to make. And I think longer term, we'll have aspirational things. Hey, you want to learn part of the system that would be helpful? You could learn this, and this is how. But we don't have that infrastructure yet. There's a little bit of that on Discord where they're trying to create mentoring teams to go and study the code, but that is just self-organizing with people that are interested, not necessarily inviting the people that have had, that know the code to also participate. So getting these groups connected also is something I think we should do. So I think that's a really good question. And we've discovered with some unfortunate passings of people that we have too low a bus factor for large parts of the system. So, it's a problem that we need to solve.
So Fabricator allows one more feature that doesn't have a direct alternative in GitHub world, is the ability to stack patches and then merge them piece by piece. Can be especially useful in at least on paper, in merging big changes where you can split them across several layers and then merge one layer then the other layer. Do you know how much development today is dependent on that feature? If we hypothetically to deprecate Fabricator, how many developers their workflow will be broken in some way, or how much harder it will be to merge big changes without that?
I mean, just because you get a review approval on GitHub doesn't mean you have to use the GitHub clicky button to actually merge the thing. In fact, I do this quite frequently in Cherryland, where I might have things reviewed in a pull request and might have, I don't know why the mic keeps cutting out. Computers are hard. Where I might get certain patches approved, and then I'll cherry pick those and push them to main directly using Git itself. In fact, it would not surprise me if still in many cases, we will use a forge for the purposes of collecting review information, but probably actually still use Git under the hood to actually push changes.
I mean, I think in a pull request model, you can always say, okay, well, here's a subset of your commits, which should be perhaps pulled out into their own unit.
You can also always get review and then decide to split it into a new pull request. And then if you have to click the clicky button, you click the clicky button on the new one and rebase your old branch. And it kind of, over time, the old branch slowly gets smaller.
So, I mean, the visualization in Fabricator is kind of nice. But aside from that, I don't think it's like.
Yeah.
I've had too many large series where I actually do have to reorganize things. Like I have one now where I've converted most of CodeLD to C++. And I'm also working on adding NVMe support. And it's 40, 60 commits. And I'm quite certain, because I've tried to do it per thing, per data structure at a time, I convert to a class and kind of fix all the different related features of that and kind of split it up to be reviewable chunks. There's no way that that's going to survive that intact structure when it gets to review. There's going to be things that make me rewrite the history and do it. And I just know that that's not going to, I can't review that in Fabricator.
What you can do in GitLab is you have your first pull request that's against main, and then your second pull request is actually against the first pull request. And then you can stack them on top of each and then merge them.
You can do that, except that I also have cases where if I have a large series, lots of times you end up with little cleanups in the middle. And sometimes it's actually the cleanups that kind of get approved. And so you end up literally cherry picking 3 or 4 commits that are kind of somewhere in the middle that honestly probably you should have rewritten the history. But once it's approved, it's easier to just push those and then rebase than to actually formally make a little branch for the 3, 4 things at the beginning.
Yeah, LLVM does use a bot on GitHub that allows you to do stacked pull requests. It has some pretty severe downsides, though. In particular, the branches have to be in the main repo. So it is not, I think, something we want to do, and there's no way to make them hidden or something. So everybody has to add and exclude to their clone, and it's a pain. It's what they decided to do. So it is a thing that can be done, but GitHub, you can't really do the pull request against pull request thing because if you delete the branch, then it closes if you delete the target branch before you update, then it will close the other PR. Awkward.
Yeah, and today, everybody that uses GitArc does the stacked patch thing, but not because we like it or love it, but because it's a means to an end. Where everybody's doing branch development and pushing that. I'm saying everybody, but maybe 80% of the people. There's still
Yeah,
some
because
people
Kib does not. Kib pushes a giant arc review of a branch with all the commit messages pasted, and then you review it, and then it shows up as like 6 commits when he pushes to main.
Right, right. And there's other people that just upload the individual bits to Fabricator
But don't
by
like them.
hand.
Yeah.
But- Yeah, but so, it looks like that feature is used a lot, but we don't care. If we switch to a branched-based thing, most people would just switch to that and be totally happy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if our biggest problem was like how to deal with, stacked pull requests of many commits each, then I think we're in a decent place compared to where we are today.
Yeah.
Like, this is also just about making it easy for someone to submit, simple, like with Fabricator, getting a patch out of an accepted review is a bit difficult. So if third-party contributors use that, then I usually just ask them to mail me a patch, which is an extra unnecessary step. Those kinds of frictions I really want to get rid of.
Yeah, I have scripts that help, but
Yeah.
only help.
Yeah, they basically paper over.
Yeah,
these
that's,
kinds of
it's
issues.
the 80%
Yeah.
works and the other 20, you still send that email.
Yeah, like I built something to be able to try to do the pre-commit CI. And so from Fabricator, it can find the hash that the patch that was uploaded was based on and check out that and then apply the patch and then try to rebase it forward, but it's not fun.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
those
and
words
it
are
depends-
using a lot of work.
Yeah, and it
Doing a lot of
depends
work.
how good or how recent their Arc config is, because a lot of people still have the one where the Arc config says it's SVN, and we have the SVN and Git versions in the backend in Fabricator, and the hashes don't work that way.
Yeah, that's one of the things you'll stub your toe on.
Did you say you're using Arc Patch to get the patch out of the repo?
No, this is using the Fabricator API to
Right.
get the hash, which is in the metadata of the patch someone uploaded.
Oh, okay.
Again, only if they used Arc to post the patch,
Right.
we get the hash they based on so that we can get something that we can apply their patch to where it won't have conflicts, to try to then basically build the staging branch feature that Fabricator never finished that would give you branch-based things that you could actually run CI against. And it's very well documented how that feature might work in Fabricator's documentation, and then there's a little footnote that says we didn't write any of this code yet.
Yeah.
I think I've read that, and I was
Yes.
very happy until
very
the
pleased,
footnote,
and then the footnote,
and then I became very angry.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the CI is a good argument too we think, for a kind of
Branch-based.
branch-based model, because a branch is what you want to throw at CI for testing. You're trying to stitch together the chain of dependencies of independent commits and reverse engineer the branch, so you can then still do branch-based CI, but pulling from something that's not branch-based is, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not worth anybody's time
That
fighting
was a
that
waste
battle.
of a week of my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to maybe do the next
Yeah,
one?
the next one is a good segue if we don't have any other questions.
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. So you might recall that last year at the Dev Summit, I presented a tool I wrote called Bricolé, which effectively does these things that I talked about. Since then, I've been using it pretty much every day, and I've successfully managed to get a small group of other developers using it. There's still a lot to do, but this is something I'd appreciate help with, or contributions, and again, as a lurker, or as if you just mail me directly, I'm happy to talk about this a bit more. But basically, we really need larger or kind of more broad tooling around things like build world, build kernel, building a VM image, all these kinds of low-level things, running QA, getting the results. My intent is to provide a tool which can do all of these things more or less in one step for you. So that's something I guess should fall under source manager's purview. It's something I've mostly just been working on my own, but I think it'll be, I would really like to see something like that, whether it's my tool or somebody else's, become a lot more popular, because especially for pre-commit CI, we have various mechanisms to do it, but when you're actually developing, you're actually trying to develop some large feature, you might need to run CI many times. Having a good feedback loop is really critical. Being able to do things like, boot your test kernel in a VM and attach a debugger very easily and poke around and run tests, all that kind of thing is, I think, quite crucial. So that's just something else that we've been talking about a lot and slowly working on. I mentioned, more automation around MFCs before. It's very easy when MFCing commits to miss something, to miss a commit that fixed another one. And yet again, we've talked about improving just commit message validation. So there's some pre-commit hooks that run that try to detect various types of errors in your commit messages, but there are certain types of errors that still pass through. So if you're interested in any of these kinds of things, being a source manager lurker is a good way to just join a forum where we can talk about them pretty easily. I think that's all we had there. I don't know if you guys want to say anything else about just general aspirations or anything I didn't list.
The auto MFC is something we also might want to look at in the future as having maybe belonging to release engineers rather than individual committers, because individual committers are inconsistent between one to the next about when things get merged and how aggressively they get merged. How did I know you were going to comment?
He's already standing halfway up.
Look at ways that we can do it better. And the other part about the automation is it'd be nice to be able to add notes to individual commits that say,
Right.
oh yeah, it was tagged for MSC, but it's a really bad commit.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Or, oh, I forgot to tag that. Or, hey, it fixes somebody else's problem. I didn't forget, but I found out later that it was a good idea to merge. So, those kinds of tooling things are also useful. Colin?
So I have a question for the room here. The process during a release cycle, we create the running branch, and then if you want to get something into there, currently the process is you send an email to the release engineering team saying, here's my patch, and then we look at it and we approve it, and then you push it into the tree. And it's been like that because that's how we've done it ever since 2.2 or something.
Dinosaurs, yeah.
I am wondering, would it be better if we just switched to a system where you email me the hash in the stable branch and say, I would like to have this in the tree, and then the release engineering team actually does that merge for you?
If you want to do work, go for it.
Well, that's also just much more automatable, right?
Yeah, and I would 100% support that, and I would work overtime to make that happen if need be.
I mean, it would actually make things a bit easier for us in some ways, because sometimes when we're okay, beta 3 is going to happen in 2 hours, we need to make sure somebody's actually at a keyboard and can push stuff into the tree in time. And then I'm like, okay, it's midnight in Europe right now. Should I do this myself, or is he still awake? So if there's nobody in the room who doesn't like that idea, I will plan on doing that in 15.0.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and there's a lot of details we can work out to make it easier or harder, and we'll stub our toes on that as we go along and hopefully come up with something that is toe-proof at the end.
I would prefer easier rather than harder, but yes.
I would prefer easier too. I just know history, and history suggests that there'll be something we stumble on that we don't know right now. Are there other questions? Or do you want to?
All I know is that Colin just volunteered to do a lot of work, so.
Well, but
So it's a success.
that's also just trivially automatable, right? You can cherry pick, run a build, make sure it succeeds, run whatever tests you need to, and then.
Well, and the point about the release engineer should actually be in charge of, when you need to do builds and so forth, and you need to manage that timeline, and having to track down people to merge things is rather ridiculous, actually. It makes it more deterministic for you as the RE.
And I think also in an ideal world, the tooling that we have for submitting the queue of potential commits to be merged and running the test suite against them and verifying the results and everything is not just tooling that we would use for release engineering. It's tooling that we can use for
Right.
changes coming into main, changes being MFC during the regular development cycle, not as part of a release, etc.
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty universal.
So on this point of auto MFCing, I mean, I'd love to have it. I'd love to be able to just say, yeah, that needs to be MFC'd and not have to think about it. But the problem is that sometimes when you go to actually do the MFC, you know, the code that you're doing the MFC into isn't quite the same, and so it throws out an exception, and then you've got to, you know, say, oh, why is that different? Does this not apply? Does it apply in some other way? Or you know, whatever. And so, I mean, it's not a totally automatable process.
Well, if we do it more automatically, those problems would also become less frequent, I think, right? Like if we were to more consistently MFC, like a lot of those inconsistencies are the result of people not MFCing consistently, I would guess. Do you not agree?
Yeah, I know. Most of the time it would work. It would just, you know, you press the button and it happens, and that's good. But there are times where it blows up for, you know, lots of different reasons, and then, you know, it's not automatable. So you sort of need a, please MFC it, but if there's a problem, let me know.
Right.
Yeah, it's many times when in that situation, I use MFC candidates on the file in particular to see, well, what were the earlier things? And usually what happens is I need to merge one or two of those. Yeah. And then it's all happy again. But then sometimes you have someone who's done a style pass across half the tree, and you don't want to merge that. When you want to merge it for like that file.
Yeah, Git is not good at partial merges.
Yeah, and you probably don't want to have the cherry pick annotation because then it's a false positive for whoever wants to merge more of it.
Right, I've had several commits that have people have tripped over along those lines, and it's good that we're on the other side. And I'm sorry it's causing pain still.
FreeBSD dollar anymore?
Olivia has a question.
Yeah, just to bounce on what Kirk said, yeah, I totally agree with you. When I MFC, sometimes there are conflicts, and that's just because people forgot. But there are some times where we don't want to MFC some stuff because it will break ABI or something. And then, yeah, then these cases, maybe, I'm not sure if it's, yeah, of course, release engineering can handle it, but it has to be probably in relation with the developer because there may be some rough edges, so yeah, in this case, we have to be careful probably for the release.
I think what Colin has proposed is not merging changes to stable, which is when you tend to run into this stuff, but when you're cherry picking during the release cycle and rolling x.y is already created, and you've done the work of merging to stable 14, for example, yourself, the act of cherry picking from stable 14 to rolling 14.3, that step that Ari would own. Okay. And in that case, usually you're not going to, it's going to be so close that those should apply directly and not need those kinds of conflicts.
Yeah, normally, yes.
Yeah, but if you've got the hammer, everything looks like a like a nail.
Especially screws. Screws drive great.
But and we will run into those issues.
Yeah.
We'll want to use, people will want to use it for this, and it'll be useful to use for that. Sorry.
Most of the conflicts that I find come about because there's some new feature, let's say, that's been added to FSCK that didn't get MFC'd because it wasn't appropriate to MFC it. And now when you try and MFC something else, it's coming away and the stuff around it has that new stuff in it which isn't in the old place, and that's when it gets upset.
Yeah, if we do any automation, we'll need the ability to push an override branch or something that says, this is how we resolve it.
Yeah. Yeah, and with like, the automation is also to catch, what am I trying to say here? There's always going to be some human intervention required here or there, but there are lots of cases where humans today are forgetting, again, that bug fix example, where something gets MFC'd, and then the thing which fixes that commit never gets MFC'd because somebody forgot to tag it or something. And so like one of the scripts I wrote a couple months ago basically looks for those fixes, tags, and commits and tries to find dangling fixes where a stable branch has a commit which is referenced by a fixes tag somewhere in main, but that fixing commit was never MFC'd. So that kind of automation is more the thing that I'm personally interested in, at least, is just trying to make sure we're not introducing bugs because the MFC process is too manual today. Like we're relying on committers individually. Well, there's some automation to help remind you, but it's still quite manual for my taste anyway.
Fewer steps that are manual,
Yeah.
the better. But if we have manual override as needed, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. And again, Warner mentioned the ability to tag commits after the fact using git notes or something morally equivalent.
We don't have any tooling for that.
Yes.
But that might be useful because we have the infrastructure for it though, because the SVN commits show up as notes.
Right. Yeah. So we already do use notes in that one capacity, and it'd be nice to expand it. Release notes are another thing. If you want to add some after the fact, then you could use tags potentially. Don't MFC this commit. It could be a note, that sort of thing. So, we're kind of underutilizing Git at the moment. Are there any other questions, comments?
Any IRC questions?
We've already got one lurker email asking to join.
We do?
Yeah,
When did you check your email?
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I'm good. My phone buzzed with a text, and it actually popped up on my screen when I was reading the text for a surprise we have later in the week.
Latera asks, does building i386 ports on AMD 64 really require a full userland? I would suspect only a subset of userland, like system libraries and a few userland applications. Bin LS and bin CP come to mind.
You want to answer, Brooks?
It's an interesting question. In principle, it should be possible to build them. I think there will be a fair bit of breakage, and I can't tell you where the breakage will be. So on FreeBSD, we build, we build with I think we build our 64-bit ports with a non-standard local base, but we build with a root.
It's a 64-bit root, yeah.
It's a 64-bit root. So I guess we don't actually test that case. In general, it should work, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff that's broken. I mean, we see, I don't know, 5,000 or 10,000 ports are blocked by changing local base. So there's going to be subtleties. I would say, though, that probably the long-term path is, yes, you should be building with M32. It's just going to be a lot of annoying work.
So the question, I think, is the amount of work and like a work trade-off. So you could do all this work to try to teach ports for this target. Sometimes you build natively with CC, and sometimes you use -M32 and you have to, add custom C flags. But on the other hand, most of the i386 specific bits that you need in user space, you need for lib32. There's not any ifdef i386 in LS. So turning off the build of LS doesn't allow you to remove any code. Does that make sense? Almost all the ifdef i386 things are inside of RTLD and libc and libthur, places like that. And you're going to have to build all those for lib32 anyway. So building the rest of the world, once you're building the lib32 bits, really doesn't cost anything in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
And in terms of the cost for people who want to still build ports by hand, not package builds, but just have the ability to build ports by hand, letting i386 world stay around is far cheaper than trying to figure out the infrastructure changes and ports so that we can keep it around for 2 years. Or however long we're going to keep kind of i386 ports working.
Well, plus we also have infrastructure in Poudriere to build ARM v7 on ARM 64.
But it uses an ARM v7 world. It doesn't use and QEMU to emulate things. It doesn't use. We're not using -M32 there either.
Exactly.
That's a big project for.
Right. So
dubious gain.
We have the ability to keep building this with the infrastructure we have, and if we want to try to switch it over, it's a big pull or it's a big lift for not a lot of runway. So the point I'm making is we'll probably keep using Poudriere and the XDevs stuff for i386 for its life. Now that it's, but people are doing that right now anyway, too.
We don't gain much from trying to build a subset of the world.
Right, right.
We have a question from Dave, DCH. Are there any concrete plans with respect to 4JO yet? 4JO? 4JO?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about ports jails.
No.
4JO.
4JO, like the
Oh,
a
4JO,
specific
that's how
fork
it's
that
actually
we-
pronounced?
fork.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what two people are working on right now, is 4JO with all the listed features that we were talking about. Can I say your name? Yeah, Igor is working on it, and Baptiste has been working on it, and they've got different problems that they're trying to solve before we can before they'll have a prototype that they can
Allow people to beat up.
yeah, to demonstrate and beat up. So yes, 4JO, that's how it's pronounced, 4JO?
Yeah, there's on their fact, they have a little audio clip, so you.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I heard it and then I struggled to say it. 4JO.
Okay. I clearly haven't listened to that clip, and I will try to say 4JO in the future then.
Here, 1 second.
You have the microphone.
Yeah, I know. 1 second.
Which is louder, the hammer drill or the
We
microphone
did make it a good way
speakers?
through.
Yeah, we made it a good way through before they started.
Yeah, it started at 2, so.
I guess they took lunch and we took lunch.
There you go.
Here we go. For Warner.
For jail.
Did you hear that?
For jail.
Yeah, you probably have to point at the speaker of your.
Yeah, 4JO is what I heard.
Well, the stream would have heard.
That's true.
Can go back and watch later.
Were there other questions?
So what's our schedule? Do we still have 30
I
minutes?
think we still have 30 minutes, yeah. Because we had a whole
Yeah,
hour.
we have an hour and a half. Yeah.
You have a question?
Somebody asked about DCH asked about 4JO.
Yeah, we just did that.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, that's good. I mean,
Thank you for watching our
we got a half hour to do bugs if you wanted to.
Half an hour is now.
Not enough time? All right.
I need to set up my
have a
laptop and
question?
stuff too.
So you could do GitHub for half an hour.
So yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Adrian on ISC asks about if somebody else can ask about Longshoon.
Can I ask about what, sir?
The question is about the Longshoon architecture and what the plan is for that.
So,
Good question.
That's from
In a
Adrian
world
at
without
IRC.
politics, the answer would be easy.
So, yeah, exactly. Part of the problem with one of the criteria that we've traditionally used, and we might want to change this, but probably not, is this architecture viable? Can I go buy hardware? Are there multiple developers working on it? Is there multiple companies even that are interested in that? Is this something that will have enough benefit to the project to be worth the extra architecture task of adding it to the project? And right now, the last time this came up, can I buy the hardware easily? At least in the U.S. and in Europe, the answer is no, not really. But in China, the answer is yes. And we the tie went to, yeah, maybe we want to wait a little bit at that time. So that's honestly kind of where we are. It's in flight, in process, but it's uncertain what we want to do, right? I mean,
I guess,
am I saying anything wrong?
I think that's my understanding as well.
Yeah, so.
The other major thing so far I don't recall having seen much kind of specific interest in it. Like maybe there are some organizations in China that would specifically be interested in that support, but it'd be nice to see some evidence of that. Like, I get the impression that it's one or a small group of individuals who are working on it, and they've made a huge amount of progress. I don't know exactly what state it's in right now. There's some pull requests on GitHub. It builds?
It builds, if you apply all the patches, you can build a Longsoon tree, but I don't have hardware, so I don't know if it actually works. And I haven't tried to figure out how to make it run in QEMU.
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, so a QEMU recipe would go some ways. I don't know, like I know OpenBSD has some support for those CPUs, but I don't know.
I don't know if it's this generation or the previous generation they have support for.
They've been around for a long time, I remember.
Yeah. Originally, it was almost identically MIPS.
So I guess the short answer at this point is we're not saying no, but we're not saying yes at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, we need something to move us off the fence.
Right.
That either, you know, if they announce they're abandoning the architecture, that moves us to no really fast. Or if there's more available hardware, that moves us to yes really fast. And a QEMU recipe might tip towards yes a little more.
Yeah.
On kind of the scale of things. And so if there's interest and it's kind of a chicken and egg. I'm not going to be interested until it's in the tree. Well, I'm not going to put it in the tree until we're interested. And
right.
So, you know, where do we draw the line? I mean, with RISC-V, it was, you know, there's a board we could buy. Then we said, okay, yeah, we can do that. If I'm remembering history right, I'm sure people will correct me if I'm not. But that was approximately when we committed it. Was, you know, can a board be had for a reasonable price?
I think we merged it before Sand was available.
Yeah.
I think it was merged when primarily QEMU and Spike were the targets.
But at the same time, there was obviously quite a bit of commercial interest in it at the time.
Yeah, and so there's more momentum behind it too.
We'd like to see some demonstration of that.
Right, and if
one way or another.
And it could be our ignorance too. We just need to be educated that there's 20 manufacturers in China, maybe. No, you know, then that would change the equation. Then there's just one or two that are pushing this.
Yeah.
As an example, so it's unfortunately a little bit of our American European centrism in the project that's getting in the way possibly too. So we're open to it. We'd like more data.
Yeah, we'd like to hear from people who are specifically interested. If it's not possible to boot it in QEMU using an existing port, like is there even a Longsoon port?
That
QEMU port in the ports tree? If not, then you know.
I think Longsoon, at least in 10, Longsoon is booting at least all the Linux stuff in the upstream repo.
Okay.
All the Linux stuff, I'm going to use air quotes, so at least some subset that they can have a CI for.
Right. So yeah, if I can do pkg install and then you know take this pull request or take this git tree and build an image and boot it, does it work? That would be.
I think I'll add that to the pull request. If hey, is there a QEMU thing, and I'll see if it forward ports because we've had some version changes since then. But the version changes shouldn't matter because for the LLVM part of it, it just enables Longsoon as one of the architectures to build.
Right. Like I don't have RISC-V hardware, but that's, you know, as long as I can boot it in QEMU, that gets me kind of 80-90% of the place I want to go. So yes.
So it's not a satisfying answer, but if we get more data, we'll make it a satisfying answer. And we'll do something to maybe solicit more data. I'll add that request of the GitHub.
Yeah.
And if people want to watch me land GitHub pull requests, I can do that, or we can just kind of hang out, or, you know, I don't know. I'm not prepared to do that. I would be improvising it and winging it, and it might be boring.
That would make it so much better.
That's real life.
I mean, it's no worse than some of my talks. Actually, it would be worse than some of my talks.
I mean, it's basically all my talks.
Okay, well,
if we're done with questions, we can just break early.
Yeah, we can break early, and I need to get into GitHub to add that thing anyway, so I'll see if there's any low-hanging fruit. And if people want to hit me up on IRC or stop by with something that they want, that'd be great. There's also another one that landed that somebody sent me email about this morning. So,
all right. then I think we'll break and we'll be back here at 3 o'clock local time for our next talk.